Everyone tells me the striker market is dead. That if you're going to spend a lot of money, which you're going to have to on the striker you want, that's going to make the difference, it's coming with a huge element of risk. And I agree, to a degree. I also disagree, because I'm going to put forward a load of names here and give pros and cons for each of these players, because I don't think the striker market is as dead as people think, and I don't think clubs are going to have to fork out the kind of money that everyone's talking about if they're to get their next, consistent game-changing number 9. We start with the most experienced on this list, and it's Karim Benzema. I don't need to sell Karim Benzema to you. The key things to look at in this player profile, and hit the pause button if you want to look at it in more detail, but the key things here is that it'd be a loan deal. You're likely looking at January. I'd be surprised if anyone wants to do that deal in the summer. Not that he's not brilliant, but that you're probably looking to invest more long-term. Of course, the salary, the wages would be high. Any club's going to have to take that on. So you're looking at someone who can make a difference between now and the end of the season. Great option, but only for January on loan if you can make it work. Otherwise, I think there are other options to look at. Move on to Ivan Toney, one of my favorite options on this list. The big things to look at here is his age. Prime age of 27 years old. He's getting into his prime, but as you can see, he hasn't played any league games this season. We all know that's because of the suspension he's had. What kind of player are you getting back? I think a lot of teams are going to want to see how he does in the second half of the season, though I do think he's an option for both January and the summer. If you feel you need to park that 100 million to get this season over the line, whatever those targets are, that's probably a deal that could be done, and Brentford might be willing to do that, but I think most teams are going to want to wait till the summer. That rumoured reported fee of £100 million, though, I've got questions because of that contract end date of 2025. Are you telling me that come this summer, 2024, Brentford won't do a deal if they don't get the 100 million? I'm not sure about that, and that's why that makes Ivan Toney and his next 5-6 months very interesting from an on-the-pitch standpoint, but off-the-pitch standpoint as well. Victor Osimhen is another player that is obviously the most talked about in the league. People talk about Haaland, what he's doing going to Man City, and the question is, well, who's going to go get Osimhen and who's going to battle it out with him? Now, is Osimhen Haaland? In my opinion, no. Have I watched enough? No is the answer to that too. Key things are that he's got 8 goals in 18 games this season for Napoli. He's only started 55% of the league games though, perhaps a couple of injury problems there, and this is looking like more of a summer option. He's only just recently signed a new deal that takes him through to 2026 with a release clause in there. You're looking at about 100 million plus to get him over the line. I think a lot of fans feel that this is the guy, this is the signing that makes all the difference, but there's a lot to consider there. For example, the release clause. For example, the potential injuries. For example, the 8 goals in 18. He was fantastic last season. Will he repeat it this season? There are questions. At 25 years old, though, profile-wise, he seems like a really good fit for the Premier League. Next option I put forward is Ollie Watkins. At 28 years old, stands at 5'11". He's playing at Aston Villa and he wouldn't come cheap. 14 in all comps. We're only halfway through. He might hit 30 in all comps. That's potentially, maybe there's something there. He could also maybe play out wide, gives you a little bit more versatility than other options. Now, a very recent target is Victor Gyökeres. Interesting one, because he stands at 6'2". He's 25 years old, but last season he was playing at Coventry in the Championship. He's now with Sporting. He seems talented. 22 goals in 25 games this season is actually the best rate I'm putting forward of all the options here, but it feels like a summer move. Chelsea have been linked, and I think they offered around 60 to 70 million, but he's got a release clause of around 85 million pounds and a long contract. So if you're willing to part with that release clause, fine. But again, 6 months worth of football after coming from Coventry. Look, he did well in the Championship with Coventry, but that feels like a really, really big risk. Then we go to Dominic Solanke, 26 years old, 6'2", right-footed as well, 13 goals in 22 games for Bournemouth this season, and again, has played every single game for Bournemouth in the league this season. He's an option for January or the summer. Newcastle are looking for a striker potentially as well, but he's banging goals in the Premier League now, and the big question is what clubs are looking for. Are Arsenal looking for an understudy to Jesus who can come in and out, who isn't ultimately going to replace Jesus week in, week out? Are you looking for someone to play and develop alongside a Nicholas Jackson at Chelsea, a Brozier at Chelsea? What is it that Newcastle want? Is it someone as an understudy to Isak? These are big questions, because you may be more willing to part with a lower fee option, but who is proven in the Premier League, and Dominic Solanke does hit that. Now, Benjamin Sesko is a really interesting option. He's 20 years old. He's actually quite comfortably the youngest in this list I'm putting forward. He's also the tallest at 6'4", but he's only got 7 goals in 23 games this season, and he's only started or played in, should I say, 24% of league games this season. Now that's interesting, because he's not as available as the others, it seems. And he's, got a long contract, and the reported rumoured fee is around 50 million. It'd probably be a little bit more than that for someone like Benjamin Sesko. So for me, the most unproven of them all, but a lot of people feel like he's got a real potential. At 6'4", can be a proper presence up front, and maybe if you're getting in for half another striker, but his potential is double, that is something to think about as well. And then Joshua Zirkzee as well, at 22 years old, 6'4" as well, very tall, plays at Bologna, 8 goals in 22 games this season, with 90% of league games started. But again, the big question is he a now signing? Is he a summer signing? And if you wait till the summer, are there just better options? Because he'd probably still be a £50 million deal to do as well. Zirkzee probably doesn't have the reputation of some of these other strikers, so do you part away with 50 million where you maybe spend 20-30 million more on someone who has really bagged goals in other leagues in Europe? So those are the options I'm putting out there, and there are some honourable mention as well. Boniface as well, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Alexander Isak, interesting one, because apparently Newcastle might have to sell to buy. That is someone they could probably get £100 million for, so could Isak be an option for a Chelsea or an Arsenal? He'd be fantastic. Evan Ferguson, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Tammy Abraham, just some other players that I've mentioned there. The ones I've given player profiles on have all been linked with moves with clubs in the last, say, 6 months. All these others have sort of been loosely mentioned as potentially available, but there's nothing to suggest that they're definitely going to leave anytime soon. So who for me is the right option when you take everything into account? When you look at all the players we've mentioned there, you take into account fee, goal scoring record, everything. I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit. I'm going to give 2. One for me is Ivan Toney. Now, a lot of people, I appreciate, might not be happy with some of the quotes and some of the things he said about Brentford recently, and you kind of wonder, is that really maybe what we want to be bringing into the club? I think he's ultra talented. I didn't see too much wrong with what he said about Brentford, in all honesty, recently. I didn't think it was great. I think he could have worded it better, but I don't think there was anything there that we didn't know about anyway. I think he's got that kind of arrogance you might need if you're trying to get over the line, who isn't phased by coming up against a Man City at the Etihad. He's done it there before. He is at a great age. 21 goals in 35 games last season, all comps for Brentford, is very impressive. 20 of those came in the league. But here's the big thing that tips it over the line for me compared to all others, and it goes back, let's bring this player profile back up. It takes me back to that rumoured reported fee of 100 million, but a contract end in 2025. He's not going for 100 million. That is my personal opinion, but it's not just something plucked out of thin air. He's not going for 100 million when his contract expires in a year's time, because with all these other strikers on the market, the value of these players comes down, and actually you're looking more at a 50, 60, 70 million pound fee, because you're saying, listen, he's 27 years old, so he's in his best years. I think he's about to turn 28, like I mentioned. Okay, 100 million. Well, for 100 million, I'll go get Osman. Or I'll save 20, 30 million and go get any one of these other players. So Brentford are going to come down to that, because if no one's willing to spend that money on Brentford in that summer, then he ends up going for free the summer after. And quite frankly, when he'd be 28, turning 29, people are probably willing to wait a year to get it for free anyway. So in my opinion, Ivan Toney is going to be available for around 50, 60 million. And I think that is the deal that is there to be done, because he's Premier League proven. I think the fee would be right. He can score goals, but also the crucial thing I've not mentioned, he's a really, really good player. I rate him massively. But I want to throw one more in there, and that is Alexander Isak, who might be available for about 100 million as well if Newcastle make him available. But that's the big question. I kind of thought when Newcastle signed him that they'd got him for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I didn't think there was a chance he'd move anytime quickly because of the investment, because of the ownership at Newcastle. I just didn't think that was doable. But he's a very special talent, Isak, and if you can get him, that might be the deal to do, even if you are perhaps paying double than you would with some of these other targets, because he's that talented. But it all depends on whether Newcastle think he is available. And I just want to say a really big thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, actually hit the links right here to watch more content like this, including my Football First podcast, which drops every Monday to Friday at 6 AM. And I know it's annoying, I am really sorry to have to ask, but if you want to show support to the channel, hitting the like and subscribe buttons help promote the content much more than you could possibly know. Thanks again.